by establishing businesses in Africa, which you have done. You have changed the lives of hundreds of people.
And it grew to 9,000 eventually.
It grew to 9,000 employees. And did I mention that this woman wrote a book that definitely you have to pay for if you want it, but if you want to listen to the audio copy from anywhere in the world, it is free. My people, we all want Africa to be so much more. We believe not just in Africa, but what Africa can be. But is it possible that we may need to rethink the way we're trying to solve the problems of Africa? While many of us, myself included, focus on corruption in government, my guest today is a well-known, very much outspoken Senegalese woman who was raised in France. She's an entrepreneur, a well-known keynote speaker. She's an author. We will talk about her book today. But my favorite of all the hats that she wears is the fact that she is an African prosperity activist. She's an activist, but not just any activist, an African prosperity. Please underline that. And guys, although she's a Senegalese, she's a firm believer in the Nigerian jollof rice. The Nigerian jollof rice is the best. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me to welcome Magatte. Magatte, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Adeola. And I see what you did there. You, where I cannot say anything, you're like, oh, she agrees. Whatever you say.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. Guys, if you don't watch the whole of this interview, whatever you do, please make sure that you check out her book titled The Heart of a Cheater. You will listen to this book or you read this book and you'll be like, this is making sense. How come I never thought of that? Especially the problem of poverty in Africa, why Africa is still poor.
If the question is, why is Africa still the poorest region in the world? And there you start to ask people, various type of people. What I hear people answering all over the place, anywhere from we're poor because slavery, we're poor because racism, we're poor because colonialism. Then I'm sitting there and thinking to myself, okay, the question was, why is Africa still poor? Poverty is solved by prosperity, not poverty alleviation, by the way, because many people tend to think poverty alleviation should be good enough. Prosperity is built by entrepreneurs. But entrepreneurship does not happen in a vacuum. For entrepreneurs to do their magic of building wealth and prosperity for themselves and the rest of the communities, they need an enabling business environment. I never hear the entrepreneurs being mentioned, and I never hear enabling business environment that they need. They have to have in order to thrive. So I ask you then, Adeola, if you don't have a proper diagnosis to your problem, how do you end on the right solution?
If any African official is watching you, people, policy makers, let's say lawmakers and so on, what's your message to them?
I say what I say to the ones that I'm talking to right now. Right now, I'm speaking to 9 nations. If indeed the business environment is what's wrong, then we're going to have to tackle it. When I first discovered all of this, my first criticized by creating move was, I'm going to get involved in policy reforms. And I did. I'm still involved in it. But the problem with policy reforms, it has limitations. It takes forever. By the time you get a reform taken care of over here, 10 more laws and regulations have propped up over there. Meanwhile, every single year, I have millions and millions of young people coming to an age of work with no work to absorb them all. So we've got a crisis here. So something needs to happen fast. This is why looking at lessons from Dubai, China, from Singapore, it is very clear that nations that provide a certain threshold of economic freedom, they are the ones who become wealthy. If you make the environment right for the wealth creators to create, they create, you get the wealth and the prosperity. It's a no-brainer. But if you make it hard for the would-be wealth creators to create, by offering them really sucky business environment, then they don't enterprise. If they don't enterprise, you don't have the jobs being created. If the jobs are not there, then the income that comes from it is not there. If people don't have an income, people are poor.
If you start reading her book and the first thing that you're finding out is how to defend yourself against a bully, please don't drop it. Keep reading. You will still get to all these things that we're talking about, but she made sure to give us, some points on how to deal with bullies in life, which is really, really good. You are a very strong woman, by the way. I was reading that and I was just laughing. And I think what you did by punching the bully in your schools, oh snap, did I just give it out? trying to do now with African leaders, not just about, talking about corruption, but them keeping people in poverty. You believe that socialism is our biggest problem in Africa? Capitalism should be encouraged.
So I think the more accurate word would be free market entrepreneurialism. Basically, first of all, the wealth and the value is created through entrepreneurship and entrepreneurialism rather than rent seeking, right? And so that explains the word entrepreneurialism. Then the word free market, all it means is you having the right and the freedom to enterprise, the freedom to participate in the economy. And then when you do that, you're also making your money by actually providing value to people, because that's the only way entrepreneurs can win. What I'm working on now is what we call the startup cities. We'll call them also prosperous cities, as in prosperity cities. I'm a prosperity activist, remember? So the idea is you go to a place where there's a rather unoccupied plot of land. And there you work with the government. The government says, here, guys, when it comes to commercial laws, no other type of laws. We're not talking family laws. We're not talking criminal law. We're not talking immigration law. We're not talking any of those things, because those things are, quite frankly, responsibility of the sovereign nation. But the country says, here, guys, get to work. Build, design the best business environment in the world. Maybe up till now, to register business, you had to go get a stamp from this governor, get a stamp from that office, get a
Too
stamp
many
from...
steps.
There you go. And each one of them costs money. Here you're going to say, it's this e-thing. You upload X done in basically in a minute. You're done. You uploaded everything you need to upload. That's your business registration done.
Just to put this in context for someone that may be watching, here in America, I'm able to register a business within 15 minutes. What do you say to people who say that the biggest problem that Africa has is corruption?
I could understand why they would say that. I could. But I think I would want to challenge everybody to not stop your thinking at that level. Dig deeper. Dig deeper. Don't stop at corruption as if corruption was a root cause. Corruption is nothing else than a symptom of something much deeper. So let me give you an example. You're driving on the road from point A to point B, you get stopped 20 million times. Each time you leave, a dollar, a couple dollars behind in local currency, to keep moving. Or you get even to the passport office. This is your birthright as a Nigerian or as a Senegalese to have my passport renewed when I need it. You go there, you put the file through, and you pay the fees and everything. But guess what? Unless you pay a little bit more, your file stays at the bottom. The only reason why this policeman can stop you on the road is because there are some regulations somewhere. There are some laws somewhere, right? In my case, he's going to say, in Senegal, he's going to say, you have tinted windows. Yeah, and? Well, did you know that to have tinted windows, you have to have a permit from the Minister of the Interior? Where's yours? Well, I'm sorry. If you don't have it, then park your car over there. We're going to have to take it away. He knows. He's waiting for you to give him a bribe. But if that law did not exist, you would tell him to go take a hike, right?
So you're saying that these policies, these laws that make it difficult to do business is indirectly leading to corruption because people are looking for easier ways to do business.
There you go. If the law, which is a legal thing, if the law says something, demand for you to be compliant, it's going to cost you too much money and or too much time, you are going to find a way to shorten that. And the way to shorten that is to pay them up. Right. And in doing that, that's what corruption is. But you see, the corruption is able to happen because the law in itself is so senseless. It makes no sense. Poverty is solved by prosperity. Prosperity is built by entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs need an enabling business environment. All around the world, you look at how nations moved into prosperity. This is pretty much the recipe they had to adopt. You have at some point to free your entrepreneurs to enterprise. And then once you give them that freedom in the form of a free market, then time and time again, you watch the magic happen. Nations who insist on stupid policies and socialist policies, meaning there is no real freedom given to the wealth creators, to the value creators, to the entrepreneurs, systematically find themselves at the bottom of a pie, some type of civil unrest, because these are all the things that happen when people have no hope for the future, when people have no jobs, when people cannot provide for themselves or their families.
And I think the one thing that I got from your book after reading it is that by establishing businesses in Africa, which you have done, you have changed the lives of hundreds of people, which in turn would translate into thousands of people when you think about their family members. So in one of your companies that you hired like more than 400 people, for example, giving them a stable source of income, that's more than 400 families that have been transformed. So that's one of the ways that you are lifting people out of poverty.
And it grew to 9,000 eventually.
It grew to 9,000 employees. So those are just the employees, and each one of them would have their own families. So this is what individuals can do beyond advocacy, beyond talking about the problem in Africa, creating jobs. And a lot of people get frustrated when they want to create jobs. They're like, I don't know where to start. There's just too much bureaucracy. That's what this book is about. You talked about how this is actually leading not just to brain drain in Africa, but it's also leading to young Africans drowning.
I'm just very upset by. It's one thing for us to have this brain drain, but it's another thing, the horrible circumstances under which it happens, and the level of indignity and suffering that's involved in this process. When you're in a nation where you don't have that many jobs and you don't have that many good prospects for your life, especially just as a young person, you don't just sit there and wait for death to come, right? It's a most natural human thing to do, to say that, okay, if I can't build a life here, I'm gonna have to go. And what happens most of the time is these young kids, especially younger people, they pack themselves into little fishermen's boats to try to cross over to Europe. These boats are not designed for the type of high seas they're gonna have to go through. If they only they knew what happens up there in high seas, and these boats are tipping over, taking with them down all of these people. We're talking our youth, our future. And by the way, these people who are leaving, by definition, in any population, they are among the most enterprising among us. These are the ones we need the most. The ones who say, I'm not staying, I'm not accepting the status quo, I'm going to go find better. These are your explorers. These are the people who could become the biggest entrepreneurs the world has ever seen if they were able to operate under the right conditions.
If anybody is watching us today and they're passionate about Africa becoming all that it's meant to be, because in your book, you told us how Africa used to be one of the richest continents, and you strongly believe that this can happen again. We all believe that it will happen again.
Thank you for asking people to hopefully read the book, and we have a free link to the audiobook. All of that you can find on my website at magatte.com. And everybody from wherever you are, start bringing this up to the table, because it is not brought on the table enough. And if we don't talk about the right thing enough, we're just not going to get there. This is why I am so excited by, minus the dead people, of course, what's happening in Kenya. I was thrilled to see that the Kenyans were focusing on taxes, talking about how it's stifling, doing business. Like, if we see more people focusing on those particular issues, I'm promising you guys, we're going to start to see a difference. And let go a little bit of always thinking about the white man, thinking about the Westerner. Those guys are doing their thing. We need to stop focusing on them. And it's not because I refuse to focus on them that I'm saying that they don't exist or are not causing trouble. But I know that whatever trouble they're causing, it can all be undone if we get to work and build prosperity in our nations. That's really all it is. And I think our people have a hard time. If you don't talk about the Westerner, if you don't talk about, puppet master this and all of that stuff, then they think you're just being naive or stupid because you don't think that's happening. I'm saying whatever there is happening, it is still nothing compared to what we can do for ourselves. And until we start to focus on what we should be working on, nothing is going to save us.
You have a website for African business owners. Why do you want us to know about this website?
Right now, we have an initiative that's going to be launching towards the end of the year. It's called Cheetah Made. So this is where we're going to want to have all of these brands. We're going to be an online marketplace for brands. So these are African products made in Africa by Africans. We know that when people support these type of companies and buy your products, and Adeola, your type of products, things like that. There are many people telling me, my God, we heard you, we're on board. Where are these products? How can we buy them? So the goal for us is going to be the liaison between amazingly produced products and brands from Africa hiring African people back home. And the marketplace here, which actually has the money for that, is willing to pay a premium for that. So it's going to be Cheetah Made. Beyond Cheetah Made, we have an insider community that we call the Cheetah Generation. On my website as well at magattewade.com, you can find a link under projects. You'll find Cheetah Generation. This is our insider community where it's not only entrepreneurs, but it's all the people who believe in a prosperous Africa and who believe it's going to happen through business, through entrepreneurship, and also these startup cities that we're talking about.
Where can people get your book?
My book can be bought anywhere where you can buy books. So Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, all of this place, wherever you can buy books. The audiobook is free for everybody. And I did it on purpose because for me, it's more about the message going around than trying to make money with the book.
I would rather that if you can afford to buy the hard copy, please sow into her ministry. This is a ministry. But if you cannot afford the book, you have no excuse, especially if you are somewhere in Africa and you can't get the hard copy, you can get the free audio copy of her book. Thank you so much, Magatte, for your time. All right. Have a good one.